Hey, welcome back to Frank's Model Works. I'm Frank. We are at part 2 of our weathering series, and in this installment, we're going to be going over washes and pigments, the materials that I use, and in the next part, which will come out very shortly after this, we're actually going to put some of that stuff to use. In this series, I'm going to show you the methods and materials that I used to produce that 1970 F100 Ford pickup truck. Because generally speaking, I tend to use enamels and oils. That's what this is going to focus on. It's not an exhaustive list of materials. You could use acrylics, you could use all kinds of stuff, and there's going to be some inks and some pastels that we're gonna be using in this, and I'm going to show you. And there's a lot of ways that you can achieve really fantastic results that are going to be outside of what this series covers. And check them all out. Don't just take my word for it. After all, I'm an idiot. It's true. I just told the folks upstairs that I was filming and to keep quiet. Everybody shut up! Not you, John and Liz. There's nobody in the house named John or Liz. So, let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about are washes. Now, based upon the foundation that I laid, if you recall, I used a lacquer-based surfacer in the color of mahogany to represent what are going to be the basis for rust spots in this 1971 Ford Mustang. And if you go back to that, to the first installment in this series, this is supposed to look like a car that was restored, bought out of California, not really rusted up too bad, restored basically back to stock, received a nice paint job and some appointments to the interior, but is still driven on a daily basis or at least a weekly basis to take it to Cars and Coffee. So it is going to start to show some wear and some weathering on the bottom. In order to do that, I'm going to be using washes. Now, when you use washes, there are basic types of washes, and the two that I'm going to focus on the most is a pin wash using a very, very highly thinned enamel-based wash, very similar to what you get out of the Tamiya Panaline accent color. Now, the reason why I use my own brush in order to do that, and I've shown this before on the channel, my problem with the Tamiya panel liner is this right here is a reservoir that contains some of the wash, and I've actually had it run out and then pool and create tide marks. So that's why I don't use it very often anymore. It's still fairly, like if I would say if you have this stuff, I would just recommend getting a really, really thin brush like that. As thin and as long as possible, and just dip it in and apply your pin wash like that. And I'll show you the technique for it. Right now I'm just going over materials. Okay? The second type of wash that I'm going to demonstrate is the sludge wash. So in order to create a sludge wash, what I do is I use oil paint. These are Winsor & Newton. If you're going to get these, you can get them at big box art stores like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. They're student grade, which means that the pigment in them are fairly fine. For our purposes, they're excellent, and they're a good value. These tubes are literally going to, even if you're young, and there's not many young people watching this channel, but these tubes are going to last you pretty much a lifetime. So, and I think they might be $8 for this size tube. The one that I use the most, obviously, is the ivory black, which seems like an oxymoron, but and then ranging through from darkest to lightest: burnt umber, raw umber. Who remembers Bob Ross? Alizarin crimson. That was one of the colors he always used. Burnt sienna, cadmium yellow, and then a soft mixing white. So with these colors, you can basically make any sludge type wash that you would want. I also use occasionally when I do my forays into armor modeling and figure painting, I use these paints. These are Abteilung, which is the German word for department. 502 Abteilung. And the quality is, in my opinion, comparable between these. These come in a really appropriate variety of colors that we use in modeling, not just automotive modeling, but especially in figure painting and armor. So ranging from darkest to lightest, there's bitumen, which is asphalt. So this has a little bit of a clear character to it. When mixed with the mineral spirits, it does make a very nice smoky wash. Next up would be engine grease, which is good for us because we're going to be using this to put a wash on the engine of the 71 Mustang. And now we're heading into the earthy tones. So dark mud is a very, very dark brown black. Almost like dark chocolate. And now I'm hungry. This one is called brown wash. It's basically made to be thinned and made into a wash. It has a clearish quality to it. Raw umber, again, a repeated color. I believe I checked this once and they are actually nearly identical in color. But let's see. Let's ruin this entire take. Yeah, this one's a little bit darker. But this, the Winsor & Newton Winton has more of the linseed oil, which when I get to that part of the video, I'll show you how you can leach out the linseed oil. These have less linseed oil in them, if they have any at all. I don't even know. They tend to be good to go right out of the tube. And then down the line, as we get towards this area, we're actually looking at rust colors. So this one is ochre. This one is oxide patina, which is perfect for our purposes. And there will be links to where you can get these down in the description. This one is warm red. This is actually a flesh tone color out of the Abteilung line, but it is useful for the purposes of mixing and getting different varying shades when we do some rust. Here's a faded dark yellow, which looks more orange, but once I get this off, it does look a little bit more yellow. So that's good for like brake dust, like the overnight rust you get on disc brakes. That would be a good color for that. And these two, this one is dust and this one is buff. These are excellent for after you apply a sludge wash, a dark sludge wash that will represent shadows and change the character of the substrate color. You could then use this to represent the dust, like from driving, and I'll demonstrate that later. Okay, let me move these to the side carefully, and I'll show you, these are the mineral spirits that I use. You can use mineral spirits that you buy at a big box hardware store. Just be careful. Give them a little, if they smell solvent, like solvent, I wouldn't use them for this. The reason why I use these is that they tend to be gentle, but then again, mineral spirits aren't really hot. And keep in mind, don't put mineral spirits on enamel paint. It's gonna start to, it'll affect it. It'll ruin it actually. If your base paint on whatever it is that you're weathering is painted with enamel, then a barrier coat, like I showed you with the All-Clad ALC 600 Aqua Gloss Clear, is going to be necessary in order to prevent any damage to the underlying paint. Okay, this one is from AK Interactive. They over in Europe they call mineral spirits white spirit. They're basically, it's the same thing. Mineral spirits are a petroleum distillate based upon oil. So like the same oil that they make gasoline and home heating oil, all that stuff. This is a distillate of it. This one is from Abteilung, and it's matte effect thinner. This I actually used a lot of this when I was building planes. Like if I wanted to start the flattening process of the finish that I was doing, I would use this stuff. This is actually pretty good stuff. And then ammo odorless thinner. Now if you see a label that says odorless thinner, just try to keep something in mind. Just because it's odorless doesn't mean it's vaporless. And I wouldn't be in a really tight quarters with anything that's petroleum based or solvent based, because you're asking for trouble. It's not good for your respiratory health. So these are the products that I use. But like I said, you can use, like, as long as it says mineral spirits and it smells a little bit like gasoline, because these definitely smell like gasoline. Let's give them a whiff. I have not as yet, let me get the can. I have yet to use this in order to thin oil paints, in order to create a sludge wash. It is, this is not straight up mineral spirits. There are additives to this, and I just never bothered because I just went straight to using these. So, but since I have the can down, we all know what I'm gonna do. My childhood. No, I get it. I get it. I understand fully why I got picked on as a kid. So, let's move on to pre-made washes that aren't necessarily from Tamiya. Pigment. Watch, I'm going to grab all. Okay, streaks, pigment, 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 pigment. So, pre-made washes for rush streaks. AK Interactive and MIG makes streaking effects. This is streaking grime. On the Ford pickup that is the thumbnail for this series, these featured prominently in the construction of that model. The only caveat I would state about this type, and not necessarily, well, these brands, is that these types definitely have a shelf life. So if you are not using these very often, perfect example, this thing's a little gummed up. Let's take a look at this. You get that. See how that looks? So you gotta make sure you're mixing these up. But you could also use this to your advantage. The only thing is, Like if you clump this stuff on, it takes a long time to dry. So just keep that in mind. Enamels in general, and these are enamel based, they take a little bit longer to dry. Now, as far as the sludge washes that I'm going to demonstrate, you hit those with a hairdryer, and you could spray either semi-gloss or semi-matte or matte clear over them in order to achieve a flat finish. So let's mix this up, see how we're doing. Yeah, it's starting to... Yeah, these are fairly old, these things. These are probably, I would say, going on 6 years old. And they definitely have a shelf life, from my experience. Can't wait to get contradicted. I probably didn't store them right, but whatever. But if you see them, and if you're going to be dedicating yourself to weathering, and if that's going to be your emphasis, then it might be worth the investment. If you're going to use enough of this stuff, it might be... This rust color is actually really good. This is the one that I used to do the streaking on the Ford pickup in the thumbnail. I'm actually going to put... Right now, I'm going to put up a picture of that Ford. So if you see the streaking that is coming down from the silver trim along the side, that's done with this, rust streaks. And it's also streaking grime is one of them. I'll try to find links for them. Like I said, the names, the companies, and all that other stuff. Oh, look at this. This is not going to be good. Yeah, look at this. Hey, Frank, maybe you should check out your products before you start filming them. Shut up, Frank. So, this is... This has seen better days. Let me grab some tweezers. I don't want to get dirty. That is a skanky film right there. Yeah, look at that. So. Oh, remember... I said in one of my last videos, I don't care about length anymore. I don't care. We're here for fun, kids. Let's shake this up. This is actually really good for dirt and stuff like that. So that's the washes that I use, the materials that I use for washes. Now, after that, I use pigments. And pigments are very, very useful because you can use these with mineral spirits to cake around and give some texture to the rust that you're applying to your model. This one is track rust. It's probably best meant for the rust on the track of a armored fighting vehicle, and it works pretty well. It was used to great effect in the bed of the Ford pickup here. And then going from there, we have medium rust and light rust. So when you can use these in conjunction with oil paint to achieve it, and we'll try to do some of that when we're actually demonstrating how we do it. But really nice. They look the part. Light rust. And then we have dust pigments, and the palette for pigments is just never ending. I mean, these guys, MIG and AK, all of those companies, they have a lot of products. It's basically an industry within the hobby industry for this type of stuff. And you can go nuts. So, if you don't want to buy pigments, you do have another option. That's the old standby pastels. So these are chalks, and this is an old. I used to fly radio control planes, and one of the companies that I used to buy indoor radio control planes from, whenever you bought a kit, they would send you this sanding sponge. It's actually really good, and I would use this as a palette to so now you have some dust, and then you can apply that with mineral spirits, and it'll stick. It'll stay there. It'll stay put. And then when you lock it in with clear, it's there for good. Next up are pens. Believe it or not, ink pens are really, really useful. I like this brand, Pigma. I'll post the link. They came in a package. I'll have a link for it down in the description. Most of these are available off of Amazon, and they come in like this is a brush tip. They're meant more for like calligraphers and stuff like that, but you could get as tight as 0.1. I don't think that's 0.1 millimeter. But 0.1, whatever. They come in a variety of colors. These are actually useful, like a coloring brush pen. This is useful if you're going to be adding exhaust stains to, say, headers. So that's why I have them in the violet and blue. It's kind of hard. I'd never really nailed it down, so I tend to use different stuff to do that. One day we'll have a tutorial on that. Next up, these are black liner pens. If you're gonna buy the pens, I would just get a few like brush pens in black, gray, or sepia. Very, very useful. Incredibly useful. I had another one. I don't know where it went. I might have to speak to the youngest human being that lives in this house. But I had another one that was gray tones, and they seem to have grown legs and walked off. I might have to have a word with the young lady who lives here. Molotow also makes black markers. Careful with these. They can get a little messy, but I prefer to use inks rather than permanent markers, because inks you can get them off of your surface easier than you could a permanent marker. You'd need solvent to get a permanent marker off. India ink you might be able to wipe away. These are pretty useful. These are metallic pencils from a company called Derwent. I believe I bought these off of Amazon as well. I'll look for now keep in mind, some of these, like this thing I think is about 10 years old. So I'll see if I can find a link for you. These are good though for penciling in scratches and stuff like that. And when you have a variety, same thing with this. This I bought at I think probably Michael's or Hobby Lobby. You can wipe these away easily if you really need to. And it's just another tool for your arsenal. You might have them laying around, like if the kids needed them for school. School's over. Make them yours. So that's these pencils. A lot of people buy these Tamiya Weathering Master. I had a few. I really don't use them, to be honest with you. I've tried, and I can't really, like, this is supposed to be rust. This is probably all dried out by now. This is almost like makeup. Yeah, it's all dried out. I might be able to do something with that, I guess, from a pigment store point of view. But I already have the pigment that's in this color, so mean, if I'm in a pinch, I guess I'll use it. So, that's my story on the materials that I use. An exhaustive, but not necessarily complete list. Some of the other things that I use, I'll describe when I get to them. Well, we got time. You know me. These things go on forever. I realize people model on a budget. Some people are on a fixed income. I appreciate that you can't go out and spend endless amounts of money on materials. So, if anything, do like an a la carte. Take some from here, take some from there, figure out what's best for you, what fits into your budget, and what you want to achieve. Later on in the series, we're going to apply these materials to the 1971 Ford Mustang that I'm working on. But we're also going to show you how I achieved the results on this 1970 Ford by doing most of the same things to this 1967 Chevelle. So, now you guys have something to look forward to. Yay. That said, I appreciate you sticking with this one. Hopefully you stick around for the next one, the one after that, and everything else to follow. As always, I got Frizzo's back. I appreciate your support. And until we speak again, my friends, take care of yourselves and be well.